This is Formula E, a sport with electric cars that are pretty much similar to F1. In fact, they're quick, accelerating at a rate of 1.8 seconds. Yeah, that fast. Also, they race around the world. Along with Formula One, they are now a rising series and now could be a potential threat to Formula One. Now, you might be thinking, why am I even talking about this? Formula E, look, why would anyone want to watch electric RC cars racing around public streets? Like, why would anyone want to watch that? Well, let me explain to you this. That Formula E is just rising now because it's starting to slowly but surely gain popularity, and I think the racing is also starting to maybe be even better than Formula One because the level of racing, the overtakes, and the different kinds of tracks all around the world have proved that Formula E is starting to gain a lot of traction. So, in this video, I'm going to go over why you should probably start watching Formula E and the crazy and insane rise of Formula E. So, let's get into it. Alright, before I really go deep into the topic, I kind of want to talk about what even is Formula E, and for those people who don't know what it is and how it works. So, let me explain how it works. First off, in qualifying, Formula E is really interesting. You see, they have a different format compared to Formula One, where there are two separate groups, Group A and Group B, and then they go into knockout stages, where drivers have to literally face off each other in like a 1v1 qualifying lap in order to get pole position, which I think is pretty cool. And it's a really interesting and pretty intense way of getting pole position in qualifying. And for the person who does get pole position, they get 3 points added to their championship total. So it's pretty high stakes in qualifying. And for the race, in Formula E, there's a thing called attack mode, where if you go around the loop, you gain more energy and you're able to overtake cars way more quicker. And especially this year, people are going from, if they activate it in 12th, they go down to 15th. But with this attack mode, since it's so powerful, you can easily go all the way up from 15th to like 9th or like 8th or some crazy position. So that's how powerful and really useful this attack mode is. And not gonna lie, this attack mode is what's been really making Formula E interesting, especially in the races with all this huge amount of overtakes, and it's just really interesting to watch. So that's pretty much the fundamental how does Formula E work, and it's interesting. Many people find it kind of confusing, but I think unless you maybe do a little bit of digging and kind of find the rules and kind of see how it works, then you'll probably get a more bigger understanding of how it works. So, with that in mind, let us now talk about how Formula E is kind of better than Formula One in a way, and how it's just rising now in popularity. So, let's go into it. Alright, so I'm gonna give like some examples as my points and my views on how Formula E is just rising and maybe even getting to a point where it's better than Formula One. First off, the racing. The racing is just crazy. Like, the Formula E goes to almost a similar amount of countries and locations as Formula One does. They go to the UK, they go to Monaco, they go to Saudi Arabia, the same track, and the racing is just different. Like, for example, Monaco. Monaco is a crazy difference of how Formula One and Formula E work. In Formula One, you barely get any overtakes in Monaco. It's just like a train going around a circuit, and it's just really boring to see. And I think everyone was saying how bad the Monaco Grand Prix is in Formula One. Well, and in Formula E, however, it's the absolute opposite. You get insane amounts of overtakes, and especially this year, if you had watched the race, this was in the wet too. Monaco, for them, was in the wet. There was a wet race, and they were still having overtakes at that track, which just shows how crazy Formula E has gone. Because now, their cars are built way more different, but are able to overtake so easily. And it was such an interesting race to watch because so many people had different strategies, and some drivers were going from all the way from the back up to the front. And it was just crazy to watch how drivers are actually making moves. And as an F1 fan, especially seeing that around Monaco, it's quite a spectacle to watch because everyone's so used to, especially Formula One fans, are so used to seeing Monaco being boring. But in Formula E, it's the absolute opposite. And that's pretty much every race too described, which is just crazy too. Now, I did forget one main thing as well. Formula E also has pit stops along with Formula 1. Now, this is like a new rule that they implemented just this year, and I don't know if it will continue on, but it got implemented into 2025 Formula 1 season. For them, it's called pit boost. It's where Formula E drivers have to go into the pits, charge up for a good amount for like 30 or seconds or 1 minute, and then from there they can just shred the car and just absolutely go flat out till the end of the race, making a lot of overtakes. And I think the pit boost really shakes up the race. So that's another interesting aspect of Formula E, is that they also have pit stops, but it just shakes up the race and it produces some really good racing. And I think that's great to see, especially from a sport that is mainly invested into racing. And with these electric Formula E cars, they're doing a really good job of showcasing some crazy good racing around really tight street tracks that Formula 1 cars would absolutely struggle to make overtakes at. So it's really good to see how Formula E is just doing really good, especially on street tracks. Now, if you're thinking, well, Formula E is just better on street tracks, Formula 1 is just way better on normal tracks, and you may have a point there. But at the same time, Formula E also does have a few races where it's not on street tracks. I'll give you an example. In Jeddah, they had a street track. Well, I guess you could call that a street track, but there is some high aspects and Formula 1 aspects to it. But they had a good amount of overtakes. And then they also had a race at Miami, which is around the Homestead track. Man, they were going 4 ways, like just crazy battles. And it just produced entertaining racing, which is really good to see. And Formula 1, meanwhile, it would be rare to get a 2-way, 3-way battle all going at each other at once. Like, it's pretty rare to see nowadays. It's just one battle that's happening. So now Formula E, it's just getting really good racing now. So it's really interesting to see how Formula E has risen from the point they were at all the way back and starting at 2014. So it's good to see. Now, Formula E does have some issues still, such as they still don't have as much popularity as Formula 1. Now, I think a few reasons kind of come up to this thing, and it's because, one, it's kind of hard to access the Formula E racing, especially if you're from Europe. It's hard to access Formula E races live, so it's a shame. But for people in the US, you can easily just go onto Roku and watch the races, which like how I've been doing, and it's just really good to see. But they need to fix making it more accessible to more fans to watch the races. And also, I think their social media aspect on like YouTube, Instagram, it's just not as popular as how Formula 1 does it, because Formula 1's like on a whole nother level with admin making shorts, and they're having a lot of content pumped out in Formula 1. But in Formula E, it's kind of different, and the race highlights aren't as nicely edited as the Formula 1 highlights, and they take much longer to put out compared to the Formula 1, which I think F1 does great in terms of a social media stance. So Formula E will have to catch up on that, but I think in the next few years we could see Formula E start improving so much to a point where it's rivaling Formula 1, and this could be bad for Formula 1, because now seeing how Formula E, because electric cars are now starting to become the future in the automotive industry, so seeing how Formula E is rising could potentially be a hindrance to Formula 1. Yeah, so that pretty much covers my main point of the crazy rise of Formula E. This sport is just really fun to watch. It's like bumper cars going through street tracks, and it's just fun to watch. Great racing, lots of battles, and there's an intense championship rivalry. And another thing to point out is all the cars are pretty much built the exact same. So in this sport, it's actually mainly like pretty much all about the driver here. The driver makes a huge difference. Like, I'll give you an example. At Team Nissan in Formula E, Oliver Rowland is absolutely dominating the season, but his teammate is all the way down and really low in the championship. Like, Rowland's being the one who's been contributing. So it's just interesting to see how the driver makes a difference. And as an F1 fan, it's really cool to watch. And I feel like everyone should maybe give Formula E a shot. And yeah, we could be seeing Formula E become better than Formula 1. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Until next time, goodbye.